and welcome to Inside Iraq. I'm Taimur Nabili. As American troops were preparing to launch the invasion of Iraq, confident of being greeted as liberators and heroes, there was one thing that foreign policy analysts, at least, were a little uncertain about: what would happen in Kurdistan. After years of being terrorized by Saddam Hussain and desperate to maintain a separate ethnic identity, the Kurds, some said, would take the opportunity to finally break free of Baghdad and try to go it alone. Well, 7 years later, Kurdistan is looking like a somewhat unlikely success story. Stable, prosperous and violence-free, it advertises itself as the other Iraq. But underneath the apparent calm, the same tensions still simmer. Kurdistan's legal status remains undetermined. The ethnic Kurds are still demanding a homeland, and critics say the regional government is illegally helping itself to the nation's oil. Charles Stratford reports.
It had been hoped the region would be a leading light in Iraq's future political and economic development, but those ambitions seem to be fading fast. Central to the perceived widening rift between Baghdad and the Kurdistan Regional Government, the KRG, is the delay in implementing Article 140 of the country's constitution. It lays down a blueprint for a structured federal Iraq, egalitarian ethnic representation, and crucially, control over the country's rich oil and gas resources. It was supposed to be carried out by the end of 2007. Outgoing PM Nouri al-Maliki has repeatedly said he is committed to its implementation, but more than 5 months since Iraq's March election result, the haggling over the formation of the country's next government continues, and this means the Iraqi PM's promise seems more remote than ever. KRG President Masoud Barzani says there is no way his Kurdish administration can participate or back any future central government unless he gets upfront commitments on Article 140. If it's not implemented, then this will mean the demise of the constitution and Iraq itself, he warned. It's a view shared by some analysts who say the dispute over who controls Kirkuk, an area that may have up to a quarter of Iraq's oil reserves, could, if not resolved, even lead to civil war. Both the Kurds and Baghdad are acutely aware that the area could generate enough money to finance regional autonomy and even independence. Highlighting the politically explosive importance oil has to the region came to a head in May. KRG Natural Resource Minister Ashti Hawrami told the New York Times that Kurds were illegally smuggling oil to Iran. Hawrami said the money was being used to pay back 2 international oil companies who were owed around $1 billion for exporting Kurdish oil over several months in 2009. Other Kurdish officials pointed fingers at the top, saying profits from the smuggled oil were being split between President Barzani's Kurdish Democratic Party and the Iraqi President Jalal Talbani's Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. A spokesperson for KRG said the reports were baseless and untrue, but they did underline accusations from numerous Kurdish opposition members who say corruption at the highest level is deeply rooted and growing in the region. They say high-level dirty dealings have led to delays in desperately needed improvements to the region's crumbling infrastructure. Calming discontent over the quality of life among Iraqi Kurds is a challenge the KRG says it can meet, but securing what it sees as its fundamental source of wealth may have potentially explosive implications for the stability of the whole country. Charles Stratford for Inside Iraq.
Joining me on today's programme to discuss the future of the Kurdistan region are, from Baghdad, Abdul Hadi al-Hassani, a member of the Iraqi Parliament and Vice Chairman of the Oil and Gas Committee in the Parliament. In Erbil, Mohammed Ihsan is the former KRG Minister for Extra-Regional Affairs. Currently, he's the KRG representative in Baghdad. And in London, Kamil Mahdi is an Iraqi political and economic analyst and a fellow at the Transnational Institute in Amsterdam. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us on Inside Iraq. Kamil Mahdi, let me begin with you, if I might. The situation in Kurdistan is being touted by the people there as perhaps being the most stable in Iraq, and certainly somewhere where they're hoping to attract foreign investment and encourage a degree of progress. Nonetheless, there are a number of issues still unresolved. Give us an overview, if you would, of how you see the situation in Kurdistan and its relationship with Baghdad.
Well, relatively speaking, the situation in Kurdistan is indeed stable and it's secure, unlike the rest of Iraq. But the emphasis is on it being relatively the case. One of the sources of instability in Kurdistan is, in fact, the ideology and the politics of the Kurdistan regional government, is the emphasis of this government on resolving issues of long-standing claims in areas that are not under its control at the moment. And that is really a source of instability for Iraq as a whole and for the Kurdistan region. I think the Kurdistan regional government, if it were to emphasize the economic prospects in the region and to also move towards resolving problems in the region, issues of jobs, of services, and
but
above all the issue of corruption in Kurdistan.
You're talking about instability, and we're getting a general sense of perhaps a few problems but nothing serious. But on the other hand, there do seem to be, and there always has seemed to be, this constant fear that Kurdistan wants to secede and doesn't see itself as part of Iraq. That seems more than just a little instability. It seems like the potential for some serious division, don't you think?
This is the point, that the emphasis of the Kurdistan regional government on resolving issues of conflict with Iraq is seen as a prelude to a demand for secession. Now, the question is, what if this was the intention of the Kurdistan regional government, then it should come clean in that and not perhaps meddle too deeply into Iraqi politics.
Well, let's put that,
at the moment.
Let's put that to a member of the Kurdistan regional government. Mohammad Ihsan, the Kurdistan government is advertising itself as the other Iraq. It would seem to suggest that you don't want to be part of the existing Iraq. Is secession the ultimate goal?
The concept of other Iraq's coming out is not on the base that we don't want to be part of Iraq. We want to show better pictures of Iraq or better view of Iraq, that what people outside Iraq looking at Iraq, this doesn't mean that there is a war or there is sabotage operations or there is a conflict. We wanted through our message to show to the international community that we have part of Iraq which already exists. There is economic is booming, you have stability, you have peace, and wait for us in near future. The other part of Iraq also is going to be the same. That's our target for describing our process as other Iraq, not that we want to isolate ourselves or to show that we are not Iraqis or we are different parts of Iraq.
The relationship between Masoud Barzani and Nouri al-Maliki doesn't seem to suggest that there is a great deal of common interest.
It's not a common interest. We have to accept that we are living a transitional period of time. Iraq after 2003, we moved to a totally different part of our history. A lot of things has been changed. We adopted new political system. We are adopting new economical system. We are facing a war of terrorists. We are facing a lot of things at the same time. This is why we have to accept that there will be a lot of differences, disagreement among leaders in Kurdistan, in other parts of Iraq, or among Shia themselves, among Sunni themselves. We are at the stage of reforming the country, reforming the political system, reforming the national identity as well.
Let me ask.
We are doing all these things at the same time.
Let me ask Abdul Hadi al-Hassani then. Abdul Hadi al-Hassani, what do you think about the Kurdistan region wanting to reform Iraq politics?
Thank you, indeed. I believe Iraq is in a phase of in transition period and reforming process altogether. Let's not forget, Iraq capital is Baghdad, and the changing had taken place in Baghdad, not in year 1991 or 90, as the KRG had benefited from really a lot of really security and assistance from the international world as a green zone. This really a transition period and reformation, it needs a coherent cooperation between all Iraqi people, whether in the north or the south, KRG, or in the rest of Iraq.
Well, if Baghdad wants cooperation,
really to respect.
Why does Nouri al-Maliki seem to think that the only time he needs to actually be particularly nice to the Kurdish politicians is when he needs their support in parliament?
Maliki or any really prime minister of Iraq has to be really close to everybody in Iraq, whether in the KRG or in the south. We have one constitution, we have one state, federal state. We believe we have to have one law, one fiscal system, one really political system, which is democracy and election, general election. However, there is, of course, speciality in Kurdistan. They have a semi-autonomous country. They have their own 17%, who they have benefited highly. They have their disagreement, which they overcome. We are pleased to see they are doing well. We need to really do the best out of Iraq, but we need them also part of Iraq. We don't want them part of anything except Iraq, but we need them also to be proactive in developing Iraq economy and also to be really feeling Iraqi before they're feeling anything else.
All right, Kamil Mahdi.
The question is to what extent that the institutions of the state in Iraq now have their writ across the whole of the country. To what extent the powers and the authority of the central government, the federal government, is in any way, in any area of activity, functional in the Kurdish region. The fact is now the federal government has virtually no authority whatsoever in any area in the Kurdish region.
Are you suggesting the reason for that is that they don't have the ability to impose their power, or that they are happy to devolve power?
Well, I think there's two reasons. One is that they don't have the ability to impose their power, but I think the other reason is in the constitution itself. The constitution was written in 2005 and passed in 2005 at the height of conflict, and with threats and under a timetable that was established, that was forced by the United States. As a consequence of that constitution, the region has come out on top of the federal government. This is illogical, and it is not functional.
All right,
and the problem that we find today, the inability of the Iraqi of parliament to set up a government in Iraq, is a product of that constitution.
Mr. Ihsan, the suggestion here, it seems, is that Kurdistan already has too much power, and yet it's asking for more, isn't it? I mean, it wants to have its own referendum. It wants to have the implementation of the laws that it was promised, Article 140 in particular. Do you think Kurdistan has enough power?
First of all, we are, as I said at the beginning, the Constitution gives power to federal government and gives powers to regions and provinces as well, or governorates in Iraq. Some people, they don't agree with the Constitution, or they say that Constitution has been written at not a correct time. This is right. But at the same time, there is a mechanism how to amend that Constitution as well. What we are talking with Baghdad, first of all, it's not a matter that who is strong, who is weak. Our weakness is Baghdad's weakness. Baghdad's weakness is our weakness too. We are accepting the reality that both sides, we have to work together to build this country. Otherwise, there will be no stability, no peace, not with ourselves and not with others in the region.
All right.
But on top of that, we have some differences, and there is some things in Constitution hasn't been implemented.
This is of course a very constructive approach to say that Baghdad's power, Baghdad's strength is the strength of the Kurdistan region. The issue is to what extent, where it is possible for the Iraqi government to exercise authority in the areas where it can exercise authority, it's not allowed to at the moment. The oil policy is one issue, borders is another, lots of areas.
Well, we'll come on to those issues in just a moment, but let me ask Abdul Hadi al-Hassani, what about Article 140? The transitional law and the Constitution all suggest greater movements need to be made towards Kurdistan. None of this has been actually implemented or followed through on. Is Baghdad intending to fulfill the demands of Article 140?
Article 140 of the Constitution is not only referring to part of Kurdistan or Kirkuk. It is the disputed area in all Iraq. There is between, for example, Ramadi and Karbala, between Najaf and other city, between Samarra and Baghdad. So this is article which need to be implemented, but we need to implement it according to the Constitution, not according to the wishes of one party or how the one party see the 140 article. We believe that KRG thinking that Kirkuk is part of, for example, the KRG, it is not really true. We need to show that every geographical part of Iraq belongs to Iraq. not belong to that and that. This is how we show coherent understanding and really functioning toward stabilization of the country and developing all the economy all together and benefit from all part of Iraq security-wise and politically-wise. We believe that thinking we and them, it is not. We have to think always we are Iraqis first, then Arabs.
All right, Mr. Ihsan, what are you going to do about Kirkuk?
Second.
Mr. Ihsan, what are you going to do about Kirkuk?
Look, Kirkuk is an Iraqi city. It belongs to Kurds, to Arabs, to Turkomans, to Khaldo-Assyrians, to all. But some policies was been adopted by Saddam's regime for more than 4 decades. A lot of people's been deported. A lot of newcomers been settled. At the same time, most of the administrative borders been changed. We've been looking through constitutional process for a system of normalization to return the position as it was before, if people wishes to go ahead with that process. Then,
so what are you saying? Are you saying you're not going to demand Kirkuk?
Give me time, please. Kirkuk, there will be a process of now. There is a continuous process of normalization in Kirkuk. Newcomers, they are going back. The people who's been deported voluntarily, they are returning back. We are waiting for census to conduct it in Kirkuk. Then people of Kirkuk, originally people of Kirkuk, they are going to decide or determine what's their future. They will decide to be administrated by Kurdistan regional power government, or they will decide to be administrated or governed by different parties within the framework of Iraq.
Mr. al-Hassani, are you happy with that vision for Kirkuk?
I believe Kirkuk is a city of really harmonization between all Iraqis, a city of symbolic unity of all Iraqi. But we believe also the finance and the natural resources of Kirkuk has to be to all Iraq, not to part of region. We believe that, for example, what happened in Hormala, just on doom of Hormala of oil field, it is really need to be rectified for the best interest of reunification of the process and unification of way forward to all Iraqis.
Kamil Mahdi, they seem to want to cooperate on this. Do you not believe that?
Well, if they want to cooperate on this, there's only one way to cooperate, which is to have the emphasis on issues of security, of human rights, of jobs in Kirkuk, of services, the emphasis on developing services, on development of the economy in the local area, through the cooperation of the population of the region, through the being led by the population of Kirkuk and these areas. The emphasis on who it belongs to, whether it belongs to the KRG or to Baghdad, is the wrong emphasis.
Let's move on to the oil issue. Mohammed Ihsan, the Kurdistan government's been accused of stealing oil and selling it to Iran illegally.
It's correct. Kurdistan's been accused, but not as part of Kurdish policy that we are smuggling or we are exporting oil to Iran. Really, if you look at the news, what happened in Turkey yesterday, Turkey was doing that one, but the oil which is exported to Iran is not oil which has been produced by Kurdish regional power or by Kurdistan regional government. Most of the oil which is exported to or smuggled to Iran is coming from central and south of Iraq, because the border is not controlled 100% by KRG and by federal government. I have to accept that. This is why I think that without a proper cooperation between Erbil and Baghdad, we can proper cooperation, not the way that some people on the Ministry of Oil are asking for from Baghdad, and all regarded oil policy in this country, it related to the mismanagement of the Iraqi Ministry of Oil in Baghdad. All the problems due to that it's not been fixed or not been sorted out yet.
Respond to that, Mr. al-Hassani.
I think smuggling and really not looking after the wealth of all Iraqi, it is wrong, whether it is in the KRG or part of any part of Iraq. We believe the Article 111 said all the oil and gas be until all Iraqi in every part of Iraq. We believe that really KRG has to take care of that, and even in the Kirkuk, as I said, the Doom Hormala, which is supposed to produce 100,000
But what does seem to be clear, Mr. al-Hassani, is that the oil law is not functioning properly, and no one seems to know how it should function. How are you going to change that?
We have tried very hard to pass the hydrocarbon law during the last 5 years. Unfortunately, the KRG or representative in the federal parliament had resisting that changes or that implementation. Due to the wrong interpretation, we hope now we are in a position to do better, to more cooperative, to see that how really the production will be unified, and the exporting of oil, it has to be go through a really legal really exportation either through Jihan or to the south, nothing else.
I need to ask Kamil Mahdi one more question on a different subject. We seem here to be seeing lots of political and diplomatic answers, lots of talk about attempting to cooperate, but General Ray Odierno thinks that there needs to be a peacekeeping force in the Kurdistan region once the American troops pull out. He doesn't think that there's any possibility of peace up there. Do you agree with him?
The United States forces in Iraq have been the cause of a very great deal of pain and suffering for the Iraqi people. There is a treaty that requires the United States forces to withdraw completely by the end of 2011. And I think the talk at the moment of Iraq being insecure is being repeated all over again. Of course, there will be problems, but it's up to the forces inside Iraq to solve them. The United States imposing itself between the federal government and the KRG will be a long-term problem for Iraq, and it will not be a solution.
Final quick word from Mr. Ihsan. Can you live with Baghdad once the Americans have gone?
I think it's our fate to live together. But regarding all our differences or our disagreement, for example, as oil, there is a matter of trust. Iraq, after 2003, we started to not trust each other. Look at the process of government building. It takes more than 5 months, and the key to that process is trust.
All right, let me just put the final question then
to implementing
Mr. al-Hassani.
140 is trust. Oil law is trust.
Mr. al-Hassani,
that's the key to the solution for the country.
Do you trust Kurdistan?
We trust the Kurdistan if they feel more Iraqis toward or Iraqis to work together. There are differences. I believe it is time to show unity, show way forward as one nation and one country who has to make the utmost of their own partnership, either federal or unfederal. But we believe this is the time to show some unity in all levels, security-wise, political-wise, economical-wise, and especially the wealth of Iraq has to be take care of it in every part of Iraq. And the security-wise, even what is Mr. Maliki said, sorry, I just want to comment on one issue that what Maliki had mentioned, that we could put up with the security of Iraq, even the drawing back of American troops. It is true, and Babakar as well is true for external defending.
Mr. Mahdi, you have 20 seconds.
Okay. Well, the issue of trust for the Iraqi people, Arabs, Kurds, and everybody of the federal government, the KRG, the issue of trust is a real problem. It can only be resolved by the KRG and the federal government being clean of corruption and not serving the interests of cliques that are clearly creating problems to maintain their own power.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed for joining us on Inside Iraq today.
Thank you.
And finally, a reminder, you can watch Inside Iraq online as well. Visit our website, aljazeera.net/English. But we've reached the end of this show, but join me again next week when we have another look inside Iraq. Bye-bye.